And so with great pride, I announce my son Michael as the next CEO of Quantum Vertex. Those words from Richard Blackwood's mouth hit me like a physical blow. I stood frozen in my seat at the boardroom table, tie suddenly too tight around my neck. 20 years of my life given to this company. Nights, weekends, holidays sacrificed on the altar of Quantum Vertex's success. All evaporated in a single sentence. But the succession plan? I stammered. Richard's smile didn't waver. Plans change, Nathan. Blood is thicker than corporate strategy. A polite chuckle rippled through the room. Michael, all of 32 years old with barely 4 years at the company, stood up with an unearned confidence that made my stomach turn. His custom suit couldn't disguise the fundamental truth that he was, a child playing dress-up. I know many expected Nathan to take over, Michael acknowledged with a rehearsed humility that fooled no one with actual experience. But my father believes, and the board agrees, that my fresh perspective is what Quantum Vertex needs in this changing market. My eyes swept the boardroom, searching for allies. Instead, I found downcast gazes and uncomfortable smiles. They'd known. Every single one of them. The elaborate presentation I'd prepared, the 5-year roadmap, the sustainability initiatives, the international expansion strategy, all sitting useless in the leather portfolio on my lap. Nathan has been an exceptional COO, Richard continued, and we hope he'll continue bringing his operational expertise to support Michael's vision. My vision, my strategies, my ideas that would now be picked apart and claimed by this nepotistic interloper. Elena Rodriguez, our CFO and supposedly my friend, caught my eye across the polished table and mouthed, "I'm sorry. Too little, too late. Let's give our new CEO a round of applause," Richard announced. The sound of clapping hands felt like bullets, each impact a fresh betrayal. Someone nudged me. "Nathan, stand up," whispered Vikram from marketing. Mechanically, I rose. My legs threatened to give way beneath me as I approached Michael with an outstretched hand. 20 years of boardroom politics had trained my face to smile while my mind screamed. "Congratulations," I managed, the word acid on my tongue. "Thanks, Nathan." Michael's grip was soft. "I'm counting on your support during the transition." "Of course," I lied, as camera flashes captured the moment for the company newsletter, the symbolic passing of the torch that had never been mine to hold. Back at my office, I closed the door and finally let the mask drop. My hands trembled as I poured myself a scotch from the decanter reserved for client celebrations. The bitter laugh that escaped me sounded foreign to my own ears. My phone buzzed incessantly, texts from my wife, my team, industry colleagues who had already somehow heard the news. I silenced it and stared out at the city skyline I'd helped build, piece by strategic piece. "He's my blood. Trust me, he's the best choice," Richard had told me privately last week. The old bastard couldn't even look me in the eye when he said it. I drained the scotch in one burning swallow and made a decision. I would smile, I would shake hands. I would walk away. But not before making sure they all remembered why I should have been sitting in that chair. The drive home that night was a blur. 20 years reduced to a cardboard box of personal items and a security escort that wasn't officially called that, but we all knew what it was. I'd resigned on the spot. My pride wouldn't allow me to support Michael's vision while being systematically sidelined. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed the lights were still on. Rebecca would be waiting up, despite the late hour. We'd been planning the celebration dinner in tonight. Wagyu steaks aging in the refrigerator, the 82 Bordeaux we'd been saving, all for an announcement that never came. I sat in the silent car, rain pattering on the roof, remembering the first day I walked into Quantum Vertex's offices. Fresh MBA, crushing student debt, but burning with ideas and energy. Richard had been different then, hungry, visionary, willing to take risks on talent rather than bloodlines. "You've got the mind for this business," he told me after I stayed until 3 a.m. helping rescue a client presentation. "Keep this up, and someday this could all be yours." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. Rebecca opened the front door, still dressed in the cocktail dress she'd bought for our celebration. One look at my face told her everything. "Oh, Nathan," she whispered, pulling me into her arms as I finally let the mask drop completely. Later, nursing a drink at our kitchen island, I unspooled the betrayal while Rebecca listened. "All those dinners you missed," she said finally. "The vacations we postponed, Alex's baseball games. Our son was at college now. How many moments had I sacrificed, believing in Richard's promise, the birthdays where I called from airport lounges, the school plays watched through shaky FaceTime connections, the nights Rebecca slept alone while I closed deals across time zones. Remember Singapore? I asked quietly. Rebecca nodded. The 4 months I'd relocated to establish our Asia-Pacific headquarters. Alex was 14 and struggling in school. Rebecca had managed everything while developing her own architecture practice. You held everything together while I built Richard's empire. Singapore had nearly broken us, but I'd turned that division profitable 6 months ahead of schedule. Richard had clapped me on the back at the quarterly meeting. This is why you're next in line, Nathan. I thought about my team at Quantum Vertex, Maya, Jason, Layla, young talents I'd personally recruited and mentored. They'd be adrift now, without my protection from corporate politics. Already my phone showed 3 missed calls from Maya. My mind drifted to the European expansion I'd architected last year. 18-hour days for months, navigating regulatory mazes and cultural differences. The Berlin office was my masterpiece. Delivered. Under budget despite Brexit complications. He couldn't have done any of it without you, Rebecca said, refilling my glass. And now Michael gets to take credit for everything that succeeds while blaming me for anything that fails. I remembered Michael joining the company after bouncing between 3 colleges to finally secure a marketing degree. Richard had installed him directly as VP of Strategic Initiatives, a made-up position with no clear responsibilities. Michael's initiatives mainly involved expense account lunches and repackaging other people's ideas with flashy PowerPoints. Rebecca reached across the counter to squeeze my hand. What will you do now? The question hung in the air. For 20 years, my identity had been inseparable from Quantum Vertex. My professional network, my daily purpose, my sense of achievement, all tied to a company that had just discarded me like an outdated piece of equipment. I had options, of course. Headhunters had been circling for years. Competitors would salivate at the chance to bring me aboard. But something deeper than professional ambition had been violated today. A promise broken. A legacy stolen. First, I said, finally meeting Rebecca's concerned gaze, I'm going to take some time. Be present. Maybe we can finally take that trip. To New Zealand, she smiled, but her eyes remained worried. She knew me too well. And then? She asked. I stared into my glass, watching the ice melt and dilute the amber liquid. Then I'm going to remind everyone exactly what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. 3 months passed. New Zealand had been therapeutic. Hiking, fjords with Rebecca, reconnecting with Alex during his spring break, sleeping uninterrupted by email notifications. I returned with a tan, rested eyes, and a clarity I hadn't possessed in decades. I declined 6 executive offers from Quantum Vertex's competitors. Instead, I signed on as a senior advisor to Ironclad Partners, a private equity firm with diverse holdings but, importantly, no direct competition with Quantum Vertex. Yet. Just consulting, I told Rebecca. 20 hours a week, max. We both knew it was more than that. My home office became command central. The wall calendar marked significant dates, Quantum Vertex's quarterly earnings calls, board meetings, the Consumer Electronics Expo where Michael would make his first major public appearance as CEO. I reconnected with old colleagues for catch-up lunches. Nothing suspicious, just a former executive maintaining his network. Maya was first. Over. Sushi, she revealed that Michael had scrapped my European consolidation plan in favor of a splashy, but substance-free, digital transformation initiative. He's burning through cash on consultants, she whispered, glancing around though we were miles from the office. The Berlin team is threatening to resign en masse. I nodded sympathetically, asked the right questions, offered no criticism, just a concerned former mentor. Jason was next. Coffee at a quiet cafe where he detailed how Michael had alienated their biggest client by missing a crucial meeting for a celebrity golf tournament. He doesn't read the briefings, Jason confided, just wings it with buzzwords. Layla met me for drinks after work, exhaustion evident in her slumped shoulders. The culture's changed, she said, stirring her martini listlessly. Everything's about quick wins and press releases now. No strategy. Each conversation, I listened more than I spoke. Each person left feeling heard, supported. At home, I maintained a spreadsheet. Nothing incriminating, just patterns and observations. Michael's weaknesses, many. His few strengths, mainly inherited connections. His decision patterns, impulsive, image-conscious. risk-averse on anything, requiring personal accountability. I tracked Quantum Vertex's stock price, down 8% since the transition. Not catastrophic. The market was giving the new CEO time to find his footing. That grace period wouldn't last forever. My consulting work at Ironclad provided perfect cover for what came next. Under the guise of general market research, I analyzed Quantum Vertex's vulnerabilities with surgical precision. Which clients felt neglected? Which executives were flight risks? Which international markets were being mismanaged under the new regime? I maintained cordial email exchanges with Richard, who had transitioned to executive chairman. His messages grew increasingly terse as Quantum Vertex's internal problems mounted. Any thoughts on why we're losing market share in Germany? He asked 4 months in, pride barely allowing the implicit admission that Michael was struggling. Happy to discuss over lunch, I replied, never putting analysis in writing. Our lunch was revealing. Richard looked older, stress etching new lines around his eyes. He described problems without naming their obvious source. His son's incompetence. You always had a good relationship with the Berlin team, he noted, reaching for the wine. They respected you. They're good people, I replied mildly. Loyalty runs deep there. I didn't mention that I'd had dinner with Berlin's operations director just last week, or that 3 of their top performers now had standing job offers from an Ironclad portfolio company. Offers they hadn't accepted. Yet. 6 months into Michael's tenure, Quantum Vertex missed quarterly projections for the first time in 7 years. The stock dropped 12% in a day. Financial reporters who had once quoted me regularly began calling again, seeking industry perspective. I wish Michael and the Quantum Vertex team all the best during this transition period, I told them, words carefully chosen to imply temporary troubles rather than catastrophic leadership. I maintained subscription services to monitor Quantum Vertex's job boards. The exodus had begun. First mid-level managers, then a director, finally a VP. All departing for new opportunities according to the press releases. None mentioning the chaos they were fleeing. At home, Rebecca watched me with a mixture of concern and admiration. You're playing the long game, she observed one night, finding me analyzing Quantum Vertex's latest press release at 2 a.m. I'm just staying informed, I replied, closing my laptop. She smiled knowingly. You haven't looked this energized in years. She was right. I was sleeping better despite working longer hours. The fog of corporate politics had lifted. My objective was crystalline in its simplicity. I wasn't positioning myself for revenge. I was positioning Quantum Vertex for rescue. Month 8 of Michael's regime brought the first major opportunity. Quantum Vertex's annual Innovation Summit was approaching, their flagship event where clients, partners, and press gathered to hear the company's strategic vision. In previous years, I had orchestrated these meticulously, using them to announce major initiatives and partnerships that reliably boosted stock prices. This year, according to my sources, preparation was in disarray. Michael had delayed planning, changed themes twice, and was now scrambling to deliver something coherent. Time to apply subtle pressure. I reached out to Daniel Way, technology editor at Business Vanguard and longtime industry connection. Just checking if you're covering Quantum Vertex's summit next month, I wrote casually. Happy to grab coffee regardless, been too long. Over espresso at his favorite cafe, I carefully steered the conversation. I'm sure Michael has something impressive planned, I offered while my expression conveyed skepticism. Daniel leaned forward. Between us, my sources say it's a mess. You hearing the same? I gave a non-committal shrug. I'm not in the loop anymore. But the summit's always been make or break for market perception. 2 days later, Business Vanguard published a piece titled, Pressure Mounts for Blackwood Jr.'s First Innovation Summit. The article was factual, but devastating in its implications, citing industry insiders, questioning whether the new CEO could maintain Quantum Vertex's reputation for visionary leadership. Michael predictably panicked. Through Maya, I learned he'd ordered a complete revamp of the summit program just 3 weeks before the event. Teams were working overnight to salvage something presentable. Meanwhile, I executed my next move. Ironclad had recently acquired TechSphere Solutions, a mid-sized firm with complementary technology to Quantum Vertex's core products. As senior advisor, I suggested reaching out to 3 of Quantum Vertex's most significant clients, ostensibly to understand market needs, actually to plant seeds of doubt, just exploring partnership opportunities. I told the procurement director at Nova Industries, Quantum Vertex's second largest client. Of course, I'm familiar with Quantum Vertex's offerings, but I wonder if their recent directional shifts have affected your implementation timeline. The question hung perfectly between professional curiosity and insider concern. The procurement director sighed heavily. Between us, we're exploring alternatives. Their support has become unpredictable since he didn't need to finish the sentence. I nodded sympathetically. TechSphere's new client success team is exceptional. Happy to make an introduction. No obligation, of course. Similar conversations with 2 other major clients yielded similar results. No direct poaching. That would be crude and potentially actionable. Just gentle nudges of already wobbling dominoes. The summit arrived. I monitored from afar as Michael delivered what my sources described as a rambling buzzword-heavy keynote. The promised revolutionary platform upgrade was revealed to be little more than a UI refresh. The stock dropped 5% by closing bell. That evening, I received an unexpected call from Elena Rodriguez, Quantum Vertex's CFO. "Nathan," she said without preamble, "are you orchestrating this?" "Orchestrating what?" I asked, voice neutral as I poured a celebratory scotch. Don't play innocent. First the press starts asking pointed questions, then clients get skittish. Now I have 3 board members calling me directly with concerns. I took a slow sip. Sounds like typical new CEO growing pains. I'm sure Michael will find his footing. Her silence spoke volumes. Finally. "The Q3 numbers are going to be ugly, Nathan. Really ugly." I allowed genuine concern into my voice. "I'm sorry to hear that, Elena. Quantum Vertex deserves better." Richard is in denial, but the board is getting restless. She paused. "People miss your steady hand." "I appreciate that," I said. "But I've moved on. New challenges at Ironclad." After we hung up, I updated my spreadsheet. Board unrest, earlier than anticipated. Perfect. Phase 2 required precision timing. TechSphere, under my guidance, announced a major partnership with one of Quantum Vertex's former clients, a Fortune 100 company that had quietly shifted 60% of their business away under Michael's neglectful watch. The press release didn't mention Quantum Vertex. It didn't need to. Industry analysts connected the dots immediately. Simultaneously, Berlin happened. The European team I'd cultivated for years finally reached their breaking point with Michael's mismanagement. 6 senior leaders resigned simultaneously, releasing a joint statement praising Quantum Vertex's legacy of excellence, while expressing concern about recent strategic uncertainties. Michael responded with a disastrous emergency press conference where he blamed resistant elements unwilling to embrace change, effectively attacking the very people who had built Quantum Vertex's European presence. The stock dropped another 15%. That evening I received 3 more calls, 2 board members and Richard himself. "What do you know about this Berlin situation?" Richard demanded, his voice tight with suppressed panic. "Only what I'm reading in the press," I replied calmly. "Those were good people, Richard. Loyal to the company, not individuals. The implication hung between us." "This has nothing to do with Michael," he insisted. "Of course not," I agreed smoothly. A week later, Quantum Vertex announced an organizational restructuring, corporate speak for layoffs, the first in the company's history. The following day, an analyst report suggested Quantum Vertex might become an acquisition target if its stock continued to decline. I made no public comments. I didn't need to. The pieces were moving themselves now, momentum building with each corporate misstep. My phone rang constantly. Reporters, former colleagues, industry connections, all seeking insight on Quantum Vertex's downward spiral. To each, I expressed only sadness at the company's troubles and confidence that the board will make necessary corrections. The message was clear to anyone paying attention. This can be fixed. But not with Michael at the helm. The quarterly earnings call was a bloodbath. I listened from my home office as Michael stumbled through prepared remarks, his voice strained. Revenue down 22%. 3 major clients evaluating their relationship with Quantum Vertex. European operations in transition. The stock plummeted in real time as he spoke, tickers on financial channels flashing urgent red. Elena, as CFO, tried damage control, emphasizing temporary setbacks. "Can you explain how losing your entire Berlin leadership is part of a planned strategy? What specific steps is management taking to address the client exodus?" Is the board considering executive changes given these unprecedented losses? Michael's responses grew increasingly defensive. We're taking bold steps toward a new vision that sometimes requires short-term pain for long-term. He was cut off by a senior analyst from Goldman. Mr. Blackwood, with respect, you've referenced this new vision repeatedly without specifics. Meanwhile, your stock has lost nearly 40% of its value since you took over. What exactly is the vision? Dead air followed. 7 seconds of silence that might as well have been a corporate death knell. My other phone line lit up. Richard. I let it go to voicemail. The aftermath was swift and merciless. CNBC ran a special segment titled, Quantum Vertex Meltdown, Nepotism's High Cost. The Wall Street Journal published a devastating analysis of Michael's brief tenure, contrasting it with the steady growth under COO Nathan Walsh's operational leadership. Internal chaos escalated hourly. Layla texted, emergency board meeting called for tomorrow. Michael screaming at everyone. Security escorted 2 VPs out. I forwarded Ironclad's CEO and analyst report suggesting Quantum Vertex might be undervalued despite its troubles. Interesting opportunity if leadership changes, I noted casually. By evening, social media leaked that Richard and Michael had a shouting match in the executive conference room, voices carrying through supposedly soundproof walls. Quantum collapse was trending in business circles. I received 6 more calls from board members that day. I answered only one, Thomas Chen, the longest-serving director, and a quiet ally during my tenure. This is a catastrophe, Nathan, he said without preamble. Richard won't see reason, says we just need to give Michael more time. The market doesn't give second chances, Thomas, you know that. The board is split. 3 of us want Michael out immediately. 2 are backing Richard. The rest are wavering. Let the silence stretch, forcing him to continue. We need a steady hand, he finally said. Someone who understands the business, has credibility with clients, can stop the bleeding immediately. Michael wouldn't step down willingly, I observed. No, but Richard might be persuaded to transition him to a different role if we had the right replacement candidate. I feigned hesitation. I have commitments at Ironclad now, Thomas. Nathan, his voice dropped lower. If we don't stabilize within 30 days, there won't be an independent Quantum Vertex left to save. The vultures are circling. After we hung up, Rebecca found me staring out at the city lights. It's happening, isn't it? She asked quietly. I nodded. Faster than expected. The next 3 days brought total collapse. An emergency board meeting ended in deadlock. 2 more major clients publicly announced they were exploring alternatives. A senior VP gave a disastrous interview implying quality control problems in the latest product release. Then the coup de grace. The Berlin team announced they were joining TechSphere en masse, bringing their client relationships with them. Quantum Vertex's stock went into free fall. That afternoon, Richard called again. This time I answered. You planned this, he accused, voice ragged with exhaustion and defeat. I planned nothing, Richard, I replied evenly. I simply walked away, as you suggested. The board wants you back. He spat the words like they burned his mouth. As interim CEO while Michael transitions to Chairman of Innovation. A meaningless title to save face. We both knew it. Why would I come back to a company in crisis? I asked, voice maddeningly calm. Because you built it too, he admitted, the words clearly costing him. And because you're the only one who can fix this mess. I let him dangle in silence for precisely 15 seconds. I'll need full authority, board backing on strategic decisions, and Michael needs a 6-month sabbatical, effective immediately. He started to protest, then stopped. We both knew he had no leverage. The board meeting is tomorrow at 9, he said finally. They're expecting you to present your stabilization plan. After he hung up, I opened my desk drawer and removed a leather portfolio, the same one containing the succession presentation I'd never delivered. Inside was a comprehensive rescue strategy I'd been refining for months, anticipating exactly this moment. I sent one text to Rebecca. It's done. 6 months later, I stood at the podium in Quantum Vertex's renovated auditorium, addressing a packed house of employees, clients, and press. The quarterly results displayed behind me told the story. Stock recovered to pre-collapse levels. Client retention stabilized at 92%. New partnerships announced with 3 Fortune 50 companies. This turnaround wasn't my achievement, I told the crowd, practiced humility in my voice. It was created by every person in this room who remembered what made Quantum Vertex great in the first place. excellence without compromise, innovation with purpose, and promises kept. The applause was genuine. The crisis had culled the organization of deadwood and sycophants. Those remaining were the true believers, those who'd stayed through the darkest days because they believed in what we built. Richard watched from the front row, diminished but still holding his executive chairman title. Our relationship remained professional, nothing more. Michael had accepted a strategic advisory role with a venture capital firm in San Francisco, 3,000 miles from any real authority at Quantum Vertex. The board had offered me a 5-year contract as CEO with compensation that made the EP wait worthwhile. I'd accepted a 3-year term instead, enough time to rebuild, mentor the next generation of leaders, and exit on my terms. After the presentation, Elena caught me in the hallway. "Masterfully played," she murmured. Champagne, flute in hand. From day one, wasn't it? I gave her the same neutral smile I'd perfected over decades in boardrooms. "I don't know what you mean. I simply answered the call when the company needed leadership." She laughed softly. "Of course. Just like you simply advised Ironclad on acquiring our biggest competitor's European operations right when our Berlin team jumped ship." I maintained my pleasant expression. Business is full of fortunate coincidences. Later that evening, alone in what was now officially my office, I stood at the window overlooking the city. The same view I'd stared at 6 months earlier, nursing wounded pride and plotting meticulous moves. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Proud of you. Dinner at 8 to celebrate?" I typed back, "Absolutely. No more late nights." A promise I intended to keep. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Thomas entered carrying a small wooden box. "The board wanted you to have this," he said, placing it on my desk. "It was supposed to be presented when you originally took over." Inside was an antique compass inscribed, "To guide Quantum Vertex toward true north." "Richard had it made for you," Thomas admitted, before he changed his mind. I closed the box gently. "The past is irrelevant now. We focus on the future." Thomas nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. No revenge narratives, no gloating. What was done was necessary, not personal. After he left, I sat at the desk that should have been mine all along. The crisis had stripped Quantum Vertex to its foundations and allowed me to rebuild it stronger, leaner, more focused, with leadership that had proved itself through fire rather than inheritance. I opened my calendar and blocked off Saturday for Alex's visit home from graduate school. Some lessons from the past were worth preserving. Work would always be there Monday. The company hadn't needed a successor chosen by blood. It had needed someone who understood that true leadership isn't taken or given. It's earned through consistent action, strategic patience, and the wisdom to recognize when to speak and when to simply watch the dominoes fall.